Hi, I'm Chef Tammy Brawley from the Green Kitchen. Welcome to Heart of the Home. Today I'm going to show you guys a delicious pork recipe. We're doing a pork loin. You can usually buy these things pretty whole. Just so you know, that's how they cut boneless pork chops from. So if you're not going to do pork chops and you want to do a whole loin in the oven, this is a delicious recipe. And we're going to be using fresh fennel. Fennel is phenomenal. It comes in a bulb like this. It's got these nice little frilly tops, and we're actually going to be using some of that frilly stuff on the top. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to cut that part off. You can slice it almost all the way to the core. Keep checking that bottom. Now, fennel and anise, they're kind of the same thing. They smell the same. There's a licorice sort of flavor there. And now what we're going to do is we're going to add it to my pan that I've already started. Here I've got some onions that I've sliced. So first we'll come back with the fennel on top of those onions. And now we're going to take our pork loin. You want to make a little bit of an incision. You want to have some whole garlic waiting. And you want to go ahead and just insert these slits with your whole garlic. So overall, I probably have about 7 or 8 garlic cloves that I'm inserting here. Might do 1 or 2 more. And we're going to move this on top of our fennel and onion and smashed garlic. We're using fennel from that plant. These are dried seeds. I've got a dry skillet here. The main thing is to always, or to never, add any sort of liquid to that. The fennel is starting to pop a little bit. I'm going to move these into a cool bowl, be easier for me to handle. To move that around, you can see that it did get toasted, which is perfect. And now we're going to use one of my very favorite tools in the kitchen. That is a spice grinder or a coffee grinder. We're going to grind up our fennel seed. Now you can certainly buy ground fennel in the grocery stores if you'd like. You're just not going to get as great a flavor with that. Here, let's go ahead and empty it into the top. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to coat the pork loin with some salt and pepper. So we're going to add some licorice salt to that, kind of rub that in. And then we're going to add some coarse ground pepper. We've got that delicious toasted fennel. We're going to rub that over there on top of that loin. But we're going to pour buttermilk over top of our loin. We only need about 1.5 cups, so I don't need to use all of this. All right, I think that's perfect. I have got my oven on, I believe it says 400 degrees. Going to go in for about 30 minutes, and then we're going to take the foil off, and it's going to cook for about another 15. All right, so our pork loin's been in the oven for about 30 minutes or so. What you want to keep in mind is that something smaller is going to take less time to cook. A larger pork loin is going to take a little bit more. What we're going to do now, though, is we're going to pull the foil off and put it back in the oven for about 15 minutes. Beautiful. Smells heavenly. And now we're going to let it go back in the oven for about 15 minutes. It'll brown a little bit on top, and then we're going to make a delicious sauce to go with this. All right, so our pork loin has been in the oven for about 15 minutes more after we've removed that foil. We're going to go ahead and pull it. You're looking for a little brown on the top there, a little bit crusty, because when you put the foil on it, when it first goes in the oven, that technically steams it and negates the browning process. So that's why we left it in for that additional 15 minutes. So we're going to close the oven. And we're going to come over here and we're going to actually remove the pork loin to the cutting board. And it's going to rest there for a few minutes. In the meantime, I'm now going to put a bed of it on a bed of the fennel and the onion and garlic on our platter. All right, that looks really, really good. And we're going to move the remaining into the food processor. Now we're putting something hot in the food processor. So this is really important that you kind of pulse it as we go, not just turn it on high immediately. Puree makes this beautiful sauce. Cut our pork loin, beautifully done. Let's put our pork loin on our platter. All right, now let's pour some of this delicious sauce over top. So we're going to hold that blade in place, and I'm going to just pour that sauce right over the top. Oh my gosh, it looks heavenly. All right. We have our pork loin that has been braised with fennel, onions, and garlic, and braised in buttermilk. I'm Chef Tammy Brawley from the Green Kitchen. Join us next time on Heart of the Home.